checkered flag in the air.
And he's going to house it.
It's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
What's going on, everybody, and welcome to another Angle of Pursuit podcast, your NASCAR betting and DFS home. That is Brian Twining, rocking the very sick Mark Martin hat. I got Truex on the brain, as we'll see for the upcoming week. As we are going to Darlington, we are throwing it back this weekend. Very excited. I've been seeing some of the paint schemes leak out, some of the other stuff. Very excited. Obviously, I am your host, Kyle Robert. You follow me on Twitter at NotoriousKRO. Follow Brian at Brian_Twining. So let's talk Darlington. But before we do, I want to give a shout out to Derek Yoder. If you're on Twitter and not following him,
you're obviously missing out.
Yeah, if you're betting NASCAR, you're doing all things. So Derek Yoder _ is his at DEREKYODER_. He does a weekly Twitter Spaces and just has a bunch of different NASCAR bettors and really smart NASCAR people on. And they kind of discuss some of the markets and things they're seeing and bets they're founding and stuff. So it's Wednesday nights at like 9 o'clock.
It's 8 Eastern.
8 Eastern.
Yeah.
So make sure you go check that out. And I think you can check it out afterwards. I'm not really sure, but
yeah, I believe he posts it either later in the evening or the next morning. He posts it as like as an individual show. But yeah, no, I try to catch it at anytime we're not recording on a Wednesday at that time. Like I try to listen in because they got a bunch of interesting information. And I think the best part about it for me is hearing everybody else's perspectives on the upcoming race and seeing why they like a guy or why they're fading somebody, So I think that's what makes it great.
Yeah, interesting nuggets, obviously good info. I'll drop it down in the description as well, so you guys can go check that out. Highly, highly, highly recommend it. But Brian, let's talk last week's race before we get into this week. We had some fun. We had some mayhem. Arguably the best race of the season.
Oh, not even no argument. The best race of the next gen car, hands down.
I mean, I will push back just because I had so much fun cashing that Byron ticket at 17 to 1.
Yeah, but I mean,
but in terms of a full race, it was definitely the best race of the season. It was
okay. Well, okay. So just to push back on your pushback, obviously
baby.
I didn't have it on the card, so obviously I can't tout about it on the show. But I did bet Denny Hamlin in Vegas. Yeah. If you follow me on Twitter, you saw me tweet out my picks from Circa. I laid a 30 spot on Denny at plus 650. I believe it was on Friday before they qualified. So, I mean, I hit a winner in Vegas. I got my ticket with me. I'm just waiting to go back in a couple of weeks so that way I go collect my money. It wasn't as much as Kyle's winnings, but yeah, definitely made for an even more exciting race for me. But just in general, the overall product that they put on the track was absolutely incredible.
People passing each other constantly, great moves. Yep. Lots of really good racing. How do you feel about the way Denny did it, though? He kind of
no. Okay, I can understand if Larson wasn't already getting squirrely the previous couple of laps, but you could tell Larson was losing the back end as we were getting towards the back, the end of the race, and he actually hit the wall before Denny even made contact with him. And yes, do I think that Denny probably try to initiate contact to side draft him a little bit? Yes, but I don't think he intended to, clip him as hard as he did. It was the fact that Larson had to overcorrect off the wall as much as he did, while Denny was also driving up to him to get him in the quarter panel, that just created a little bit more contact than both had anticipated.
Yeah, and I think it was a Hendrick issue because Byron had a very similar issue earlier in the race when he was near the front and ended up, falling back to kind of flirting with the top 10 instead of being right where he needed to be. Shout out to Chase. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, and we've seen this before with Kyle Larson. He's incredible. He's probably this series' best driver, but we've seen it before where at the end of a race, because he drives the car so hard and gets out to such giant leads, it's almost like his tires wear a little bit more than everybody else's, and he's got a little bit less grip as we're coming down to the final laps.
Well, and it was interesting, too, because they were talking about how many people were changing tires so constantly. Yet at the end of the race, a lot of people had a full set of stickers left. So I was kind of a little confused by that. I think a lot of like some teams went back to their first set of tires that only had 6 laps before the
and then they said some of them used their scuffs from qualifying.
Yeah, so they were able to kind of finagle it, which I think is interesting, but it was definitely a fun race. I will say, had that been Denny in first and Ross in second, I bet Denny would have a little bit of a different opinion on how that race ended.
Well, I clearly, like, the person who's on the bad end of that is normally going to complain. I mean, kudos to Kyle Larson. Like, dude is just a complete. He's a Zen master, I guess. Nothing bothers him, at least on the outside or on the exterior that he shows the fans. I would like to see him get a little more Ross Chastain or Kyle Bushy.
But he's able to like not let shit bother him, and then he's able to win anyway. So I like that. But he's like, I was getting loose and Denny came and took the spot, and good for him. Probably helps when you win as much as he does.
I was just gonna say, Kyle Larson knows he's gonna unload this weekend too. Just and he's
as winning
fast.
races
so
that maybe he probably shouldn't. So it's all. It is kind of interesting too. Like he could arguably have 2 more wins with Vegas and with Dover.
I believe it was Dover. But then also don't forget Auto Club. He was fast, but that was the race where he was like. He had an issue and he went like 6 laps down earlier, and then he still was running the fastest laps on track the rest of the day. He was mired, multiple laps down.
Yeah, it was pretty interesting. There was a lot of stuff. There was also was it Byron on Sunday that was down multiple laps and then came back?
Yeah, I think Byron went down like 3 laps or something,
and then all of a sudden he was back in the conversation.
Somehow wound up on the lead lap inside the top 10, battling at the front. I was like, what in the effing world is happening right now? Like
Hendricks on a different level for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's recap our DraftKings lineups and our betting card. As we continue to remember all that was on Sunday. It feels like days ago, but it was really just like 15 minutes ago. We will also talk about the bowl cut bonanza between the Watermelon Man and old Noah Gregson. I mean, good gosh, Noah, what are you doing? You don't want that smoke.
No.
So we had a couple lineups. Our best lineup had both. This is our worst lineup. So Chastain was fine. Blaney, like, I felt like he had a better day than he probably.
Don't get me started. I mean,
it's the Ryan Blaney experience. I don't know what you're expecting if you're backing him at this point. Josh Berry definitely underwhelmed me, as we'll look at the betting card and see some frustrations over there. Overall, not that great. This one, however, we did it. We got Kyle Larson and Denny Hamlin on the same lineup. That was huge.
And people that faded Bubba Wallace, you can suck a big giant bag of what.
I mean, he was 20% rostered, so I wouldn't say. Eric Jones was not great. The Dinger was really strong. 6,100, starting 27th, ends up finishing 14th for over 40 points. Corey LaJoie had a really nice week.
Dude has been awesome this year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you put it into perspective, a 20th place finish for Corey LaJoie, which has kind of become his norm. Like, he's finishing inside that mark. Like, that's incredible driving force for Spire Motorsports.
Yeah. No, he's definitely making things interesting. And I don't think we've talked about this on the show yet, Brian, but Josh Berry is going to be taking over Kevin Harvick's ride next season. We talked about that making sense when we talked about Josh Berry kind of earning a full-time seat when he ended up getting Bowman's ride. But that is an interesting move. I think that makes a lot of sense. And I'm going to be curious to see if he can take full advantage of it, or if it's going to be something where they're like, we picked the wrong person. Let's go with somebody else.
Well, I'll lead off. I don't know if it's exactly official, but it's definitely trending that way. And, he's done nothing to say that he's not the right call for that. I thought they made it officially official. No, I thought he signed like some like futures thing. I don't know. I could be wrong. That said, I do think it's curious. It's interesting. I mean, he's a little bit older of a guy to be jumping into a full-time Cup car for the first time. So, obviously it comes with a little more maturity, but I mean, maybe SHR is tired of the young guns. I mean, Chase Briscoe has looked like absolute, hot steaming pile of crap so far this year. And then Ryan Preece hadn't really done much. And then Eric Almirola, same thing. He just keeps running the problem. So I'm excited to see what Barry can do next year in that car if he is the call. He's done well with Hendrick so far this year. I will say I am looking forward to seeing Alex Bowman back on the track because I do think that he's going to offer some decent value when he returns because, I mean, maybe the books kind of forgot about him.
I feel like that was kind of the case at the end of last year, but they put him right back where he belongs. So I don't think we'll get that lucky just because he is a Hendrick Motorsports guy and he's one is enough. But yeah, no, I am also with you there. We'll see when that return happens. As for the betting card, Brian, we got to get our shit together a little bit here. It has not we got some good momentum going, and then it kind of not so much. So I appreciate you for the pushing me to the Logano top 10. Obviously didn't finish in the top 5, finished in the top 10. Glad I added that. At the moment, Bowman over Reddick as my best bet. That was a nice hit for me. Obviously helped me not have a complete and total wasteland of a day. And Bubba Wallace top 5 plus 275. Feel pretty good about that. Other than that, it was a bloodbath. Chastain was there a lot.
I was just going to say your Kyle Busch top 10. I mean, it was definitely trending as a hitter.
He was there. If he didn't wreck at the end, I feel like he gets right in that conversation. He was strong all day. Ty Gibbs, same thing. He was great all day and couldn't quite get it across the line. Josh Berry.
I was just going to say it was funny, Ty Gibbs, because his car wasn't in too bad of a shape when he wrecked. Mm-hmm. They cut away, and then all of a sudden they go back to him, and he's exploded the entire right front of his car because he was probably driving a little bit too quick back to pit road, and the tire exploded and tore up the entire fender.
Yeah, it was really funny when Mike Joy's like, yeah, not a lot going on there, and then they cut to his car, and it's just in pieces.
Completely destroyed, yeah.
Good job, Mike Joy. Nice call. But yeah, Chase looked great. I'm glad I honestly, I'm happy to go to that. He had a legit chance to win towards the end, obviously faded when it mattered most. Byron was there all day. Chastain was there all day. The Josh Berry one is the only one I'm really like, probably shouldn't have gone that way. I got a little too excited for my own good. You had Blaney over Kyle Busch and Bubba over Kyle Busch. Obviously, those were really good. Obviously, worked out more because of what happened.
Thanks for Busch wrecking.
Yeah. Larson top 5. That was a great call. Hamlin top 5. That was a great call. Plus money. I was staring at that for like the whole week, and I'm like, Denny, it feels like a good number. It was like 2-1 to top 5. And of course I never pulled the trigger, and then he qualifies well. And
yeah. And I think that's something too, for me going forward. Like those top 5 numbers are always, I'm always wary of them just because it's so hard to crack the top 5 in today's world. But I mean, going into a track where you kind of knew these guys were going to be running up there, I should have went a little bit heavier on those and a little bit lighter on some of the other ones. But I stand by my Harvick and Blaney top 10 picks. Blaney looked great all day. He was riding better than what a lot of people had thought. And then at the end of the race, he dropped like a rock again. And then Harvick too. He just couldn't crack the top 10 after the last restart.
Yep. Both were strong for 95% of the race. Unfortunately, it was the 5% that mattered most. Yeah. So overall, not definitely not the race we were looking for, but I think our heads were in the right place and pushing towards the right direction. We just need to get a little more luck to kind of get these cars across the finish line.
Yeah, and I think it would be a little bit different too. Like if we were adding live bets to our cards, I think there'd be maybe we'd be seeing a little bit more green here because you're able to kind of get the trend of the race. And
it's a lot easier, like especially after qualifying and after practice, and even Sunday morning, like after kind of letting it all process. It really is interesting to kind of think about it. And it's also like top 5s are not easy to find for everybody, but if you find them, they're oftentimes not as good as a top 3, but they are a lot safer and provide a lot of value still. So
yeah.
Let's dive into this week's number, where obviously Kyle Larson is your favorite. We're back to that 4 or 5 to 1. Denny Hamlin coming off victory, 5.5, 6 to 1. Truex is 7. Tyler Reddick is 8-9, and then we start really talking about the 10 to 1. So inside 10 to 1, we have basically 4 guys. Are you interested in any of these names at the top?
Well, the first guy that's on my card is the same guy that I've seen. Kyle has his name there. William Byron. 10 to 1 on a guy who he's going to put the car up front, near the front. First couple of rows. He's qualified top 5, I believe, in 3 of the previous 5 trips to Darlington. I mean, he should have won the damn race last year had Joey Logano not been a complete a-hole and, oopsied and missed the break and went in a little bit too hard on turn 3 there, coming to 1 to go and move him out of the way. So, I mean, at 10 to 1, he's probably going to qualify great like we see every single week. He's going to drop inside that number, probably closer to that 8 to 7 to 1 that you see Truex. So, I mean, for me, I think he's the best value right now.
Yep, I 100% agree. And to your point, like he is, his number, like very, very good chance of getting shorter, very, very slim chance of getting any longer. So now is probably the best number you're going to get. The fact that we're getting him at double digits is kind of shocking to me. So I put 3 names on my card. I haven't figured out how I'm exactly betting them. I think Byron outright is going to be on the card. I'm trying to be a little more patient about my outrights and not just fire. As fun as it is, I am trying to get back in the green sooner than later. And obviously a outright or 2, and all of a sudden I'm, way above the green. But Byron outright is interesting. Martin Truex at 7 to 1 is also interesting. He gets a little closer to maybe I should be patient and or look for different ways, top 5, head to head, that kind of stuff. But I definitely want exposure to him this week. I haven't figured out how, but he is clear. Something is clicked. He has figured out the new car. He is performing like the Marty Party of 2 years ago. He's going to be somebody as we go to Sonoma and other road courses that I'm going to be very interested in. And obviously he's getting priced aggressively. So, that window might have closed, but he is somebody that I'm very, very excited about.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely stemming from last fall's race here where he was, one of the fastest. And then, you try to find similar tracks here, and from all the experts that know a lot more than we do in the space, Homestead, just the way that the track runs and the fact that they're running the same tires that they ran there, that's a pretty good comp when looking at that. And Truex was extremely fast there as well last year. I mean, that's probably one of the reasons why this number is where it is.
Yeah, in terms of track comps, it's really hard to find somewhere for Darlington. Homestead is one of them. The Bristol track, in terms of the way the banking is kind of similar, but obviously much shorter. So there's not a lot of comparisons. Vegas is kind of similar, but it's really it's kind of its own beast.
I mean, they literally call this track too tough to tame because of the tire degradation. And then, I mean, coming off the corner, they call it the Darlington stripe for a reason because those walls creep up on you quick.
I'm also trying to be a little more patient this week because I do think we get some carnage and I do think we get some other stuff. And even if I have the right guys, I don't want to get screwed by the course and by the track and, wheels coming off and other stuff. So that's why I am trying to be patient. The next range, as you mentioned, William Byron is at 10 to 1. I love that bet. I think he will be my first outright. Kyle Busch is interesting. Obviously was leading until he had car issues late. And basically the reason why he didn't finish the race is because of the car, not because of him. He's also in the 8 car this year. Should be interesting to see what he can do there.
Well, before we pivot off of Busch, I think he's quite possibly the most polarizing guy for me on the odds board right now.
Yeah.
He sucks at qualifying this year. So 10 to 1 for me, pre-practice and qualifying is not a number I want to get on, but he's driving the 8 car that Tyler Reddick looked extremely fast with. here at Darlington, while Kyle Busch himself, prior to all of the issues he had in the car last year and the fall race of 2021, was one of the best drivers at Darlington with JGR. So, I mean, you're putting a guy who has been incredible. This is a driver's track, as some of the people like to call it, and Kyle Busch is one of those guys in a vehicle that performed extremely well with a driver who probably isn't quite to the level of him. So, I mean, if you put those two together, why not Kyle Busch, who won the previous high tire wear track of Auto Club this year as well? So it's just, for me, I don't think he's going to qualify good. So I think you're likely to see a better number post-practice and qualifying with him.
I would say if you love Kyle Busch, the outright market should be your friend. And if you think he's going to be not very good and he's overvalued, I would be looking to fade him in matchups, fade him in other ways. Because I feel like he's either going to win the race or finish like 28th. I don't feel like there's going to be a middle ground for him. And yeah, like in terms of the Darlington 2, he was started 5th. He was 3rd after stage 1. He was 1st after stage 2. He had the 2nd best driver rating behind only Denny Hamlin, but because of car issues, ended up finishing 30th in the race. So hard to deny what he did. And as you mentioned, the 8 car was really strong in that race as well. So there's a lot to like. But as we've seen each week with RCR, you never know. I mean, it's a complete crapshoot. And so maybe, to your point, you wait till qualifying and, practice and all that. And maybe you're betting it at 7 or 8 to 1, but maybe you feel much better about that than you do at 10 to 1, which, it looks like garbage. And all of a sudden he's out to 15. And if you want to,
So that's exactly my point there. Like Kyle Busch, for instance, he could come out here and put the thing, top 5 coming to the starting grid, but he's not going to be 5 to 1 like Kyle Larson is. He's going to be maybe 7, maybe 8. I feel much more comfortable getting in on that than I do 10 to 1. And then him go out there and potentially put up a stinker of a qualifying effort. Yeah. And then you come back the next day and he's posted at 15 or 16.
Well, and like we even saw last week, William Byron puts it on pole and his number gets a little bit longer.
Right.
Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously the books knew what they were doing because they ended up making Hamlin the favorite, and obviously he wins. But thought that was really interesting. So yeah, the early double digits are interesting. Obviously, we touched a lot of Kyle Busch. We love William Byron. I think Ross Chastain is always interesting.
Always
was really, really competitive here. Hasn't won in a while, so we could say he's due. We could say maybe he's a top 3, top 5 type bet. But definitely is somebody that I'm very drawn to at his number. Kevin Harvick is fine. Christopher Bell, they were talking a little bit about him. I don't know. Like he's
I like him in a placement potentially, like a top 5 or like in matchups. Not necessarily on the outright market here.
Like I don't feel like week to week he's been as like competitive for the wins as I kind of expected.
Yeah, and I think that's really what you're looking for in a guy. Like he'd be a guy that you would want to jump in live if you have that option. Like if he comes out and he shows early that he's got a really fast car, you're probably still going to get him at 7 or 8 live in the race. So I mean, why not just wait to see him be able to do that, where he's been kind of running, 4th through 8th kind of in general and not having that top end speed.
All right, Brian, here's your podium. Get on there and talk to me about Joey Logano.
All right. So Joey Logano, I can't bet an outright on him because I refuse to cheer for him to win a race.
Oh, but I definitely need to bet his outright.
But this is a guy who qualified on pole at both Darlington races last year. He won the spring race by knocking William Byron out of the way. That said, he did have probably the best long run car there. He was incredibly good during the fall race. At Homestead, he was still decently fast, even while he was basically already prepping his car for Phoenix and the championship race. So it's not like he even had to try there. I mean, he's been pretty good at Darlington in the past. if you like him, I think you get on him now, because if we see any sort of like Penske speed off the bat and he's on pole or 1-2 with maybe Ryan Blaney jumps up there with him, like this number is going to plummet. And he probably will be, unlike Kyle Busch, in my opinion. If Logano puts it up there, he's probably going down to like the 6-7-1, cutting his number in half because of his recent success here.
Yeah, if you're willing to, like, you would rather bet it at 7 or 8-1 and know that he had a really strong performance, then I completely understand. But yeah, especially if you can get that 14, I think you jump on it. And even if you're okay, take half your bet at 14, see how he does, and if you like what you see, take the rest of your bet and go back in at 7 or 8. I think that could be the move. Or you look at something like a top 3, a top 5 right now. If he runs really well, unloads fast, then you go, okay, well now I can add to my outright card and figure it out. So that's a couple ways to do it. Chase Elliott is really compelling. He's still being priced 15-1, 14-1, like 12, like anything above 12-1 at Chase Elliott, it kind of breaks my brain. So like I feel like I need to get on it, because as soon as he wins, he's going to be back down to 6 and 7-1 and potentially lower.
My only worry with him is he's never performed great here. Like he has a bunch of like 4th and 5th place runs, but he's never been up front. Yeah. I guess you want to say.
And we'll have to look at what his like top 5, top 10 numbers are and see if there's any potential there, or maybe a head-to-head. But he definitely is starting to show signs that it's there, and he can be a legitimate winner. The 20 and 40, like, you know, there's a definite cliff after Elliott, and it just falls. So we have Ryan Blaney at 20, we have Bubba at 30 and 40, we have Brad K, we have Daniel Suarez, Eric Jones is like 60. Are you interested in any of these guys in terms of an outright card, or is it really just like once we hit Chase Elliott, it's a kind of over?
We talked about this last week, man, and who wound up winning? One of the favorites. Like, we're in a position again where these like rando winners are not happening. Like, I'm sorry, you can look at Eric Jones's number and get all excited about 60-1 or 65-1, like Steve Letarte gave out today from DraftKings, but I am not betting on a legacy motorsports guy right now when they can't even get off the damn hauler with speed.
Yeah. Like, yeah. I mean, last year was the admiration. We're back to normalcy.
Yeah.
The elite guys are winning. Obviously, when you see a 60-1 on a guy you like, go look at those top 3, top 5, top 10 bets. Get your value there. But yeah, in terms of outright cards, it's really, really like hitting an outright's tough. And it seems like it's really narrowed down to the guys that we expect to win. And I think there's each week 4 or 5, maybe 6 guys that can legitimately win the race. Will there be an outlier every once in a while? Sure. It's NASCAR, wheels fall off.
Yeah, and the only thing is these are not super speedways where you know half of the favorites are going to get taken out in one wreck. Like in order for those guys at that 30-1 or 60-1 number to win this race, they need to beat like the 5 best drivers in the sport, like Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Tyler Reddick, Kevin Harvick, Joey Logano. That's more than 5 guys that he would have to be better than here at this track in order to win again. Like, that's not happening.
If it happens, it's a JGR guy, it's a Trackhouse guy, it's a Hendrick guy, it's a guy in a really, really good, and maybe even like Chris Buescher, but obviously this wouldn't be necessarily the week for that. But there is weeks where RFK is going to look really strong and have a really good chance to win. But yeah, you're gonna need an up and coming driver in an elite vehicle in order to knock out all of these guys.
Yeah, it's just the odds are so far against him of winning. Like not for me.
I agree. So for me right now, the names that I really am considering are Martin Truex, Ross Chastain. I'm gonna lock in William Byron at 10-1. Just because, like we talked about, I expect him to be fast. I expect him to qualify well. And I expect his number to go down, even if it's, 7 or 8 instead of 10. Truex is absolutely compelling. Ross is interesting. but maybe more of a top 5 bet. I think that's kind of where my head is going so far. Are you beyond Byron? Is there a name or two jumping out as he might make the outright card and sooner than later?
I mean, like I said, the Kyle Busch thing was intriguing, but I just can't get there at that 10-1 number, seeing how bad he's qualified. And then the other guy for me that popped off early in the week was Kevin Harvick. He was the first guy I wanted to look at the odds. Like, obviously, there was a lot of banter back and forth between me and a few people. Like, he opened at 20-1, which if I could have gotten that, I would definitely be in on that. But right now, he's down to like 12-1. Or something of that nature, 10 at some places. By no means am I getting in on Kevin Harvick at 10-1 in a season where SHR has looked like donkey crap. And none of their cars outside of maybe 1 or 1.5 races was Kevin Harvick even battling for a win.
Right. And I'll bet William Byron, Kyle Busch, and Ross Chastain over him if they're all 10-1.
Yeah, and then again on Harvick, you could have gotten him at 20 before the market started steaming it shorter. If he comes out here and puts this thing, top 5 or qualifies really good, 6th or 7th, what do you get? You're probably getting 8-1. I would much rather bet that, knowing he's got a good car, than get in at 10 and then have him put up his normal qualifying effort that he did last year here, which is 15th or 16th, and it goes back up to 14 or maybe back to 12. Because if he doesn't qualify well, yes, I understand this is a driver track and he's extremely skilled at that. He is put at such a disadvantage by having a bad car against the guys who they just unload good without even having to make any tweaks to their cars.
Yeah, this race, we were talking about it a little bit before, but like, it's a really rough betting card. It's hard to find a ton of value. I feel like we will talk on Saturday, and qualifying will have sorted some stuff out. We'll get some better numbers on guys that we potentially want to target, and we'll be much happier with the odds at that point. It's really hard to sit and be patient because some of these good numbers are going to go away, but I think there will be opportunity come Saturday. So at this point, Brian and I are both on Byron, and then in terms of outrights, and then we'll see as the week goes along. We obviously will tweet out stuff if we add it, and then we will recap everything on Saturday. So make sure you do hit that subscribe button if you have not. A lot of people watching are not subscribed. Please do us the favor and hit subscribe. Gets you all the content as soon as it's released. Mash that thumbs up and let us know who are the targets you're looking at as potential outright bets. We're very interested to know where the community is going. Let's go to the top 10 market. It looks like just Caesars. So let's go over to Caesars.
So interesting. BetMGM actually has a top 10 market this week.
Oh, baby.
So I'll keep them up so we can.
So I'll pull up Caesars, and then if you see a really good number at MGM, man, Kyle Larson's already down to 4-1 there. It's crazy. Let's see. It is Future Bets top 10. So back to ridiculous numbers for some of these elite guys. The one thing I will say, Brian, be on the lookout. Check those numbers because you might find interesting value on a driver that maybe slips through the crack or gets placed incorrectly. Just a little something to keep an eye on. Let's see. Denny,
I don't think a plus 330 is going to happen again.
No. I think that should have been minus 330, and obviously it was minus 300. And those that know, and those that don't, it's fine. Just check your odds. You might find some value that you didn't expect to find. Hamlin, Larson, like most of these guys, we won't get to. Bell minus 160, Harvick minus 160, Eric Jones minus 160.
Okay. The fact that Eric Jones is priced evenly with Kevin Harvick
and Ross Chastain and William Byron and Kyle Busch. What are we missing?
Like, I don't give a crap how good Eric Jones was here when he drove for JGR and last year when he won the race. But how can you back a team that has been terrible? Like, they've been bad.
Yeah, I would love to be in Vegas and not to bet him to not top 5 and not top 10.
Yeah, okay. And then of this list, like I will say, I'm
one of these names is not like the others.
Yeah,
let's just put it that way.
And I'm contemplating this right now, though. Kevin Harvick at -160. I know you're laying a lot of coin there, but I mean, outside of his car blowing up on him last year during the fall, he is a top 10 machine here. The previous 9 times he was top 10. He's run, 6th or better in 8 consecutive prior to last fall.
He would be he's your favorite of the guys that are, say, -160 from Logano all the way up to Christopher Bell. He would be number 1 for you?
I think the safest in terms of the way he'd be able to maneuver his car. Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, it's interesting that you asked that because out of those guys, I would put him maybe 6th to win the race.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of safeness to the top 10, I would say he's number 1.
Yeah, I don't think it's wrong. I mean, I would probably look at Byron or maybe Busch, but like to your point, like those guys are going to be pushing at the front. They might be doing stuff to try and get the win, and that might ultimately cost them at the end. But I do think that is interesting. Chase at -130 is really interesting. I don't know.
When is the last time you've seen Chase Elliott at
especially at like a non-super speedway,
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
All right, I'm gonna add it. Screw it.
Sorry to talk you into that, but I mean, you do not see Elliott's number at that.
If I think Chase Elliott at 14-1 to win the race makes sense, I have to take the -130 to
you
top
sure as hell
10.
do. Yeah.
It's like I'm not, I think he'll be competitive most of the day. I know this isn't exactly his like best track, but I'm assuming -130 is the best number I can get, or at least from what you see.
For top 10, blah, 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 blah. Let's check this out. Oh, yeah. Got to go back up here. Yeah, he's -190 at BetMGM and -159 at BetRivers.
So if you can get -130, jump on it. That's a screaming deal.
Well, okay. So just for reference, BetMGM has Eric Jones +140, and BetRivers has him at +215 to top 10. So if you like Eric Jones and you have access to BetRivers at 2-1, I don't mind it. But at -160, hell no.
It seems like the sports books, like us, have no idea what to do with these guys. So they're all trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So that is why it's really important to shop it, because you might get much, much better numbers. So yeah, I think that Chase Elliott number is a smash. There's a few names that kind of jump out: Brad Keselowski, Daniel Suarez.
Yeah, so Brad Keselowski is actually the first top 10 I'm going to add. I mean, I'm wearing the number 6 Mark Martin Roush hat. Like, it's throwback week. I'm going with the current driver of the number 6. He's +160 to top 10 at BetMGM. RFK has shown the ability so far this year. Keselowski has a decent history at this track in the past. So, I mean, why not dive a little bit in on him? If I'm not going to go with Logano, let me go with my other arch nemesis in Brad K.
Let me know if there's a better number, but Ty Gibbs, the top 10, I'm going back to it. I know it didn't work out last week, but it should have. It obviously things are going to happen, but +225 for a guy that's been consistently flirting with top 10s each and every week.
+275 at BetMGM.
Oh, even better. Like what are we doing? Almost 3-1 on a guy who's been as strong as he has been. I know, new car, new track, whatever. Like, he's fine. Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah.
All right.
So one of the
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, okay. So one of the guys that's on here that you've heard, if you listen to Derek Yoder's show, you heard a few people talk about him, and there's been some steam on him early in the week. But that's Austin Dillon. Okay. Yes, he's got 5 top 10s in the last 10 races here, but of those, only once did he finish better than 9th. So, I mean, this is a guy that's finishing 9th or 10th. He did it last week. It was 10th. Like, when he top 10s, he's finishing 10th. He is not a safe play at that, even at that number for me. I'm not willing to get down on him anymore, knowing that it takes, a fast pit stop late or something miraculous to happen for him to pass a guy to get into 10th.
Yeah. What's the best number I can get on Michael McDowell? Is it 375?
No, hold on. 425 at BetMGM. And then again, if you listen to Derek Yoder's show, somebody said I think it was like Betfred or something, which we don't reference here because I've never been on there.
I think that's a Canadian book.
Yeah, they have like 7-1 on him to top 10.
Like, this is a guy who top 10 in both races last year, has evolved as a driver. Obviously, I don't think he can win the race, and betting him to top 10 is even a little risky. But if you're giving me better than 4-1 on a guy who did it twice last year in the new car, like, sign me up. This is also a guy that has done well at, super speedways where they have, restrictor plates. Like, I don't know. Like, that doesn't make sense. If the number breaks my brain, I'm going to just go ahead and take it and deal with the consequences. Brian buried the lead here. Ryan Newman is back this week, baby.
He is here for one reason and one reason only, in my opinion. And that was at the request. That was at the request of Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Noah Gragson, Martin Truex Jr., Christopher Bell, and anybody else who's ever had a run-in with Ross Chastain. I cannot wait for the first time that Ross Chastain is going to try to lap Ryan Newman this weekend to see what happens.
It's going to be must-watch TV. I can't wait.
Yes, it is going to be effing awesome.
So good.
Okay, so on that list, the guy right above Ryan Newman, I'm going to go, the number at BetMGM is a unit higher. It's Eric Almirola at 5-1 to top 10. I know he doesn't have a great history here, but you're talking about a guy right on the other side of Austin Dillon where he was finishing 10th or 9th. Almirola finished 11th both races last year. He's got a 9th, a 7th, a 12th, and a 14th over the last 10. So this is a guy that's finishing just on the bad half of the 10, that all he needs is one or two guys to get out of the way to cash a top 10 at more than double the price of Austin Dillon, who finishes in like the same exact spot.
Good luck to you, sir. That is not a bet I will be joining you on. The Almirola ride has not been good this year, but I definitely understand where you're coming from and why that makes sense. Let's go to the head-to-head market and see if we can't find some value. Larson, a slight favorite over Hamlin. If you like Denny, minus 105 is fine. Chastain over Suarez makes sense, but plus 215 is interesting.
Suarez was,
especially at a track where nonsense could happen. If Ryan Newman knocks him out in the middle of the race, like
exactly,
you're cashing plus 215. That's pretty interesting. The dinger market has moved. I know Briscoe was a short favorite. We'll have to see if we can find a better number because
Briscoe has just been garbage.
So bad.
It's pretty bad.
Elliott over Logano is kind of interesting. Here, why don't you do this? Almirola over Keselowski. If you think he has a legit shot at the top 10.
Yeah, but I like Keselowski more than Almirola. That's the thing, to where Keselowski's ceiling is much higher than Almirola and Austin Dillon.
Well, and then Josh Berry minus 150 versus Austin Dillon. If you like Austin Dillon, plus 120 against Josh Berry is kind of interesting.
So again, on that instance, like, yes, I would rather go the side of Austin Dillon at plus 120. I think he finished 9th at Auto Club this year, and like I said, he's habitually finishing 9th, 10th, or 11th at this track. So Josh Berry has been kind of he can get up there in the Hendrick car, but he's also,
we talked about that a little bit. Was it Saturday? We were talking about him and kind of his struggles on the mile and a half. He struggled at Vegas, obviously struggled last week. Something to keep away for the next mile and a half ride. You want the widest range of outcomes driver versus the safest option, and taking Stenhouse versus Harvick. Plus 235. Man, that number got beaten.
Empty the bank account if
empty,
this was
double mortgage.
Yeah.
Let's go to future bets and see if there's.
Let's look at the top 5 market because
there could be numbers that are interesting for sure.
Yeah,
like William Byron plus 140.
So
that's the best number I can get.
No, so the I've already added it. It's BetRivers plus 160.
Perfect.
William Byron, yeah. I guess this is the 24 show this week.
Yeah, I feel much better about us both being on Byron. For some reason, it doesn't have the same stink as Logano or Blaney or something.
Like I said, you can bet your ass next week at North Wilkesboro. I'm hammering Ryan Blaney to win the All-Star race.
Harvick, yeah, guaranteed. Already fired it on that. Harvick plus 140 to top 5 is kind of interesting. Might even be able to find better numbers elsewhere.
Plus 210 at BetMGM.
Yeah, like I'd much rather bet him to top 5 than to top 10.
Well, yeah, because you're getting way better value.
Yeah.
But again, to me, that all comes back to if he doesn't unload well, you're probably getting a better number.
Maybe.
Especially if he doesn't unload well, getting to the top 5 is going to be a lot more difficult than just cracking the top 10.
That is also very fair. Where he starts on the grid is going to be much more important. So if you think people can qualify well, getting him now is probably the move.
Yeah, and I mean that's the reason why. Like,
speaking of that,
I don't know if I want to do it again, but
Byron at 7.5 to 1.
What is that?
To qualify on the poll.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to add one more top 5 right now. I'm just going to keep doing it because, I mean, he's clearly the best driver in the sport. But that's going to be Kyle Larson, who is minus 160 at Caesars, but at BetMGM, or actually BetRivers, he's minus 106 to top 5. So I'm going to hit
a good number. Yeah, seems like a good number.
I mean, when you think about his rash of bad luck, had it not been for that stuff, you're talking about a guy who's finished 5th or better pretty much every single race.
Yeah.
You know?
Larson is plus 145 to be top Chevy. Yeah, I think that's all priced pretty fairly. Truex plus 225 to be top Toyota. I think that's how I'm going to do it.
I will say Reddick is intriguing in this Toyota market after what he did last year. And now, I mean, I would say
again, we'll have to figure out, was that more about his car or was that more about
touche.
You know what I'm saying? I'm adding Truex's top Toyota at plus 225. I'm going to see if I can find a better number. If you have top Toyota pulled up at MGM, I would love to know if that number can be beaten.
Right, let's see. I don't even know if they have that right now.
Let's see. Top Ford, Logano, Harvick.
I don't see that market here yet.
Harvick at plus 180 is not too bad for top Ford.
Oh, the Knicks won, by the way, everybody.
Oh, back to Miami to get the little extra vacation time after losing game 6.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is priced correctly. I think the Chevys are going to be really strong. I think there's a few Toyotas that could win the race, and then the Fords are really lagging behind. So
I was just going to say, with the Fords, honestly, with what we've seen, it's really only Logano and then Harvick if he's up to par.
And I don't think Harvick is really even like we talked about it. Like, I'd much rather bet him to top 5 or that kind of stuff.
I mean, the thing though, again, with going back to Harvick, if he comes off the hauler fast and he looks great during practice and qualifying, I have no problem hitting him at like 8 to 1 or even 7-1, depending on how quick he looks.
Yeah, no, I hundo P agree. Okay, Brian, I think that will do it for today. So let's review our cards. Let's give the people our best bet as we sit here on Wednesday evening. And then we will be back obviously on Saturday. Or we'll be in your feed probably Sunday morning. What time is qualifying this week? Is it a later one like last week, or do we get a little break and go earlier? Let's take a look.
I apologize. I didn't have that up this week.
It's fine. You're good. We have a nice early qualifying. So if schedule the line, hopefully we can get it recorded a little bit earlier and potentially out Saturday night. So make sure you turn on the subscribe button. You can even hit that bell notification so you know when we post a new video. Let's review and give the people some thoughts. So Brian, you have Byron to win. You have Byron top 3. You have Byron top 5. Brian, do you like Byron?
Absolutely not.
Kyle Larson to top 5, Brad K to top 10, and Eric Almirola to top 10. What is your best bet as we sit here Wednesday?
Man, this is so effing hard, dude.
And if you don't have a best bet and you just have like your favorite bet as we sit currently, that's fine too. It's much more important that we have our best bet come, prior to race. So once practice and qualifying. So if you don't have one, don't force it.
I will say that this early in the week, I'm extremely high on him this weekend, and that's going to be William Byron, as you can see here. I like his top 5 number. I'll go a little bit heavier on that than I was anticipating, but I just think all things equal, as long as he avoids wrecks, he is going to be running near the top 5, competing for a victory pretty much the entire race.
I agree. That is why he is on my card. I have Truex to top Toyota. I'm going to bet Ross Chastain somehow. I haven't bet it yet, so that's why I just put his name on here. My new thing is just to go through, list all the drivers I like, and figure out a way to get exposure to them. I'm joining Brian on the Byron top 5. Chase Elliott minus 130 to top 10. Ty Gibbs to top 10 at plus 275 feels like a value, and Michael McDowell to top 10 at 425. I am going to make Chase Elliott, as you can see from the units, my best bet. Chase Elliott top 10. I think he will be. I don't know that he'll necessarily contend for the win, but I think he'll be in the conversation all day as we watch the leaders. I think he'll be kind of in that 4 to 7, 8 range. So I feel really good about him inside that top 10. I'm laying that minus 130. If he qualifies really well, that number will crater, and I will feel even better about having it. So
yeah, and I almost feel like I'm missing the boat here on that, but I mean, I don't want to go too heavy here, but the value on an Elliott, who is, one of the sport's premier drivers, getting minus 130, even at a track that he hasn't been great at, he could accidentally fall into a top 10.
Yep. And you don't need to force it. We're sitting here on Wednesday. We have plenty of time to think about it, figure it out, all that good stuff. For Brian Twining, I am Kyle Robert. As I mentioned, we will be back on Saturday. Make sure you are subscribed, hit the bell notification, and let us know your favorite outright as we sit here. We are the Angle Pursuit, and we'll talk to you next time.